Hey everyone, today we have a special type of video. We are going to be taking a look at Porto Portugal.
Everyone has been asking us about Portugal, so here you guys go. This is a cost of living on Porto Portugal.
So our friend David from Expat Empire is living in Porto, and he and his wife have a really nice quality of life. And while Julie and I haven't been able to make it there, we're actually in Fethiye, Turkey. He has provided us with the information of what it's costing for him to live in Porto, Portugal. Now, David runs a company called Expat Empire, and they work with retirees and nomads that want to move abroad and live overseas. So he's a plethora of information for anybody that's looking to go abroad. Now, of course, if you're choosing to go with Expat Empire, make sure you mention the video, because he will be providing a discount to our viewers that watch this video. Just let them know Warren and Julie, you saw the video. But let's check out the quality of life that David has and see what he has to say about living abroad.
Come along.
David and his wife have decided to call Porto Portugal home. It's the largest city in northern Portugal on the Atlantic. They live in a modern apartment building near the center of Porto.
Here's the outside of the building. We're going into the main entrance. Here we have the stairwell up and down the apartment building. Let's take the elevators up to the 6th floor. Go here to number 6 floor. See out here into our apartment. So as you come in, you have the basic entryway where we keep our shoes and coats and that type of thing. Take off my shoes now. And first I'll show you our little office space where we also have guest stay on an inflatable mattress here. I have the workspace with computer and all of that set up, as well as our bookshelf with lots of our favorite books and belongings and trinkets from our travels. And then if you go to the back here, you can see a bit of a sunroom that we use as a storage space largely. You can see a great view there over Porto towards the water. So now, as we move on from there into our bedroom, we're here, you can see the large bed, nice view, good setup there. And then we have here our bathroom. You can get a basic sense of, and then moving into our living room, we have it with our kitchen right here and our area where we can watch TV with a couch, and even my wife's piano. She likes to play sometimes. Speaking of my wife, here's my wife Natsumi. And she's here with our cat Ariel, who we got about 2 months ago now. She's 2 years old. And we just have this really wonderful patio space where we're able to really enjoy it, have a lot of room to walk around and have people over, and just a wonderful view over Porto. But it's just a wonderful space. We love this apartment, and it's a beautiful day here in October in Porto, Portugal.
Hey everyone, I hope you enjoyed seeing our apartment here in Porto, Portugal. It's a pleasure to be able to show you around to a bit of our life here that we've had in Porto over the last 3 years. My name is David McNeil, and I'm the managing director and founder of Expat Empire. We help people to move abroad through our unique personalized consulting services. Now I want to tell you a little bit about our cost of living here in Portugal. I know that's a topic that a lot of people ask us about, so happy to share more about that. And I think the best place to start is probably on our rent. So every month here in this apartment that I just showed you, we're paying about 750 euros per month. The original listing was actually for 850, but at the time we were able to negotiate down by 100 euros and also give up the parking space access. So we don't have a car here in Portugal, so we didn't need the parking space. And luckily we were able to use that as a bit of leverage to get a lower price in the apartment. I should also mention that this is quite a good price here in Porto, especially closer to downtown. We're not in the center We're not in the most busy touristy areas. We're a little bit outside of that, but still walkable in terms of distance. And what we're hearing is that people are paying over 800 euros for a 1-bedroom, and here we're paying 750 for a 2-bedroom. So we're in a pretty good situation, and thankfully we have a 5-year lease on this apartment, which means that we keep paying 750 for the next 4 years now that we've been here for about a year, and we're really thankful for that. As another point of comparison, we lived in Matosinhos, which is a nearby beach town to Porto, accessible by metro. We lived there for the first 2 years that we lived in this area, and we moved here last December, so about a year ago. And then that previous apartment, which was nicer and newer, more recently built, but still 2-bedroom apartment near the beach, was 950 per month. So actually, by moving downtown, we ended up saving 200 euros per month. So that's been great. I'm not sure if that will always be the case, but people want to be near the beach, so kind of makes sense that it would be a bit more expensive there. So another thing to just note about our experience getting an apartment here is that we looked for both apartments in the month of November. So if you're looking in the winter months, you'll usually have a better chance of finding a good place and maybe a better deal, because of course during the summer months there's tons of tourism and landlords are more eager to rent the places out for short-term rentals like Airbnbs to be able to maximize the revenue coming from the tourists and nomads and things like that. So if you can look during the slower months in the winter, then you might be lucky and get a better deal overall, but just something to keep in mind as you plan your move here to Porto. The next area to talk about is our utilities. So in this apartment, we only have electricity and water to pay for. In the previous one, we also had gas. So here at this apartment, we're paying about 60 euros per month for electricity and 15 euros per month for water. Of course, that fluctuates based on the time of the year and things like that. But overall, that's what we've seen over the last year, and not too bad in terms of costs. We did end up paying, I think, a bit more in the last apartment in Matosinhos for electricity and gas, and so it was probably more like 70, let's say 70 to 80 per month. But here we're paying about 60 overall that we've seen, especially this summer. So let's see how it goes this winter. The next area to talk about in terms of our expenses is our phone and internet service. So we actually were quite lucky in getting a great deal on this service because we signed up during a Black Friday deal when we moved here in November of 2019. And this deal is basically 2 6-gigabyte SIM cards for our phones, a lot of minutes there as well, and great internet at home with Wi-Fi across the apartment. And we also have television channels, although we don't watch many, and a landline phone availability as well, which we don't use. But for all of that, all inclusive of all of those different services, it's only 60 euros per month. So we've been really happy with that. And the internet service is great here in Portugal, so you don't have to worry too much about the availability and speed of internet. The next area to talk about in terms of our expenses is transportation. Usually we're walking around the city here in Porto. As I mentioned, we don't have a car, so we're walking on our own 2 feet to get around this very livable, very walkable city. But sometimes, of course, we use public transportation as well. I'd say that costs about 15 euros per month for using the buses as well as the metro system here in Porto, which is pretty well done, pretty extensively built around the city. So we find that to be our main way to get around with transportation outside of walking. And also sometimes when we need to, on occasion, we'll get an Uber or a Bolt, one of these car sharing type services. And both of those are available here, usually a couple euros, 2, 3, 4 euros will get you across the city. So let's say another 10 euros per month for that when we need to use it. So 25 euros altogether for transportation. Another expense to discuss is insurance. So in terms of health insurance for us, when we originally moved here, I had a job. And as part of that, I got private health insurance from the company and had to pay for my wife's as part of that as well. And so what we were seeing there was that it would cost about 80 to 100 euros per month for us to get private health insurance. We stopped doing that once I moved away from that company. And so we're not paying those expenses right now, and we're just using the public healthcare system. So I would say that overall that's been pretty good. I mean, honestly, we haven't had to use it too much, thankfully, up to this point. But on the other hand, we are considering getting some private health insurance sometime in the future because recently I tried to sign up for your usual health checkup that you do every year or so, and I've had to wait 2 months to get an appointment. And so Honestly, that's not super appealing. So we are considering our options on that front, but it is very affordable. For us, we're in our mid 30s. So at that point, the costs are about 40 to 50 euros per person per month. So let's say about 100 all in. And, goes up from there as you get older, have other situations. But it's very affordable and reasonable. So yeah, we're thinking about that, but at least we have coverage from the public healthcare system as well. Another cost you might want to consider in your budget is a co-working space. So, of course, because I'm a business owner here, but I don't have any local employees or freelancers here in Porto, the team is spread all over the world. Then for me, I don't have an office space here. And for a long time, I just worked from home here in this office. But it became a bit tiring over time, and I wanted to have more social interactions, be able to meet more people in town, especially other entrepreneurs and freelancers and folks with a similar mindset to me. So I started looking around for a co-working space and found a great one not too far from my apartment. I'm paying for a part-time plan there at about 80 euros per month. And, I would say a part-time plan will probably run you somewhere from 70 to 100 euros per month for 2 or 3 days per week. And then a full-time plan is probably at least 120 up to 150. So it really depends on the space and, where it is and how it's set up and how they run things, whether you do part-time or full-time. But if you're interested in meeting people that are kind of doing something that you're interested in or doing similar things, or if you want a space to be able to work outside of home to get a little change of scenery, I strongly recommend joining a co-working space, and there's plenty of great ones here in Porto. Next, let's talk about the cost of groceries here in Porto. We spend about 250 euros per month. So we spend that on the local supermarkets that we go to frequently. There's also some small shops for fruits and vegetables, or meat shops, of course, as well. And then we typically will go once or twice a month to the Asian food market and stock up on some good Asian food, as we love that, as well as the more health food stores. Both of those options tend to run a bit more pricey than your typical supermarket, but you're getting high quality stuff and certainly stuff from other countries. So we definitely think it's worth it. And so all in on groceries, about 250 per month for the two of us. Now let's get into the costs of going out here in Portugal for food, for drinks, and so on and so forth. So what we see is that we're spending about 300 euros per month overall on these type of expenses. So that's going out for a couple of meals per week at a restaurant nearby. It's going out for beers, it's going out for coffee, buying beers to have here at the house and things like that. So kind of just pulling that all into one big expense at about 300 euros per month for both of us inclusive. And so I would say, most of the time we're eating at home and buying groceries like I mentioned, but a couple times per week we'll go out for some food. I mean, if you just get a pizza or something, it's going to be 5 to 10 euros. If you get a local Portuguese meal at a cafe, small Tasca local cafe, it'll be, 5 to 10 euros as well. Of course, if you go for dinner, it's probably going to be closer to 15 to 20. But I would say overall, that'll be like, let's say, a Portuguese place for about maybe 20 to 30 for us together, 40 at most. And then foreign restaurants tend to be more expensive, or even nicer restaurants that have like hamburgers, or we love some good Korean food here, for example, or Japanese food. So that's going to run you at least 30, if not 40, 45 for a meal. And so, I'd say that's about how it breaks down in terms of our expenses regarding restaurants. On the other hand, we have our favorite coffees that we like to buy. So we usually buy beans and grind them at home and have, make it on a coffee machine here at home. But sometimes we'll go to the cafe as well. If you go to a local Portuguese cafe, it's going to be about 80 cents to €1 for a small espresso, and maybe a bit more for a cappuccino. But what we usually do as well is go to our specialty coffee shops, which there are a ton here in Porto. We have some of our favorites, and we'll get a €3 to €4 cappuccino there, and maybe something to eat, which is more in the €2.50 to €3 range for a sweet. So we enjoy doing that in the weekends, and it's definitely more expensive than some of the absolute local options, but on the other hand, it's one of our joys during the week. Next, if you look at beers, for example, or drinks as you go out, whether with dinner or going to a bar. So the local Portuguese beers, for example, Superboc and Sagres, will be about €2 to €3 for a pint, whereas some of the craft beers will probably be more like 4 to 7 euros a pint. So kind of depends what your taste is. Of course, Superbock we love here up in the north of Portugal, Sagres more in the south. And that's great, but we also like to treat ourselves a bit with some nicer beers from around Portugal and around the world at some amazing bars, craft beer spots they have here in Porto as well. Okay, so let's wrap up and talk a bit about what the total cost is then. So if you take $7.50 for rent, $60 for electricity, $15 for water, $60 for phone and internet, $25 for transportation, $80 for co-working, and $250 for groceries, $300 for going out, then that gives you a total of 1,540 euros per month. So it's pretty reasonable, I think, especially given how much the prices are increasing here, and especially rent as well. So I think we're doing all right, all things considered. You could do it a bit cheaper than we're doing it. Like I said, it depends how much you go out. It depends where you eat, what kind of food that you eat, what kind of beers that you like to drink, and so on. So it does depend on that. And I should also mention that these expenses don't include things like buying clothes, home maintenance, all of the extra stuff that you end up spending money on during the month or once per year, once every 6 months. So keep those expenses in mind, as well as the cost of travel, not just around Portugal and nearby cities, but also all across Europe or across the world, going back to the United States or going to, see family wherever they are. So all of those expenses are not included here. So it'll probably be closer to 2,000, 2,500 potentially up to that, given that travel can be expensive, even if you're trying to do it cheaply. And, keep that in mind as you're developing a budget for going abroad, whether here to Portugal or somewhere else. But I hope that helps you get a sense of the cost of living here in Porto and the type of lifestyle that we're having. Thank you so much again to Warren and Julie for having me on the show, and I'll speak to you soon.
I think the price in Porto Portugal doesn't sound too bad. What do you think?
No, it was quite surprising to me.
Yeah, we've actually heard that the cost of living has gone up quite a bit in Portugal, and we're going to be there in February, by the way, February to April. So we will be checking out for ourselves the areas around Lisbon and Faro and the Algarve. I think what we saw in David's video was that if you're a retiree on a typical 2,700 for a couple, you could survive in Portugal. And if you were a single person on 1,700, you can. But as a reminder, we want you to always factor out the worst exchange rate. And it was about 125 at one time in the last 5 years. So we want you to make sure that even though we got a great exchange rate now, that you're giving yourselves that safety net in your budget. We want to thank you guys for joining us today. So as a reminder, Julie and I, we're traveling the world with our 2 dogs. We're trying to see what it's like to live in other countries, other places, and we're trying to share our experiences and expenses with you. So if you haven't already, please subscribe. Don't forget to give this video a like. And until next time,
Have a great day, everybody.
have a great day.